So what the hell is going on? I mean, seriously. Why is it so easy to find a PhD position? And then when you do a PhD, you would think that it should make your life much easier to find a job, a real job. Not just a postdoc, but a real job. But that doesn't happen. Can somebody explain to me why that may be the case? I mean, of course, I want to discuss this and I want to share my thoughts on this. But before I get into that, I think it is just mind-boggling that almost everybody who studies life sciences, does a PhD in life sciences, finds it quite hard in present times to find a job. I mean, it shouldn't be that hard to find a job, especially when you are considered an expert. You are a doctor, you are considered, as I said, an expert in your field. You should be getting non-stop calls, people asking you to come and join them. And whether it is academia or industry, you should be in demand once you have done a PhD, right? But that doesn't happen. We know that. And it is quite kind of outrageous, to be honest with you, that you spend so many years working so hard and you're sold this dream that, once you have a PhD, then everything is going to be amazing. These are some of your tough years, when you have to just work hard, not question much, and at the end, you will see how life transforming a PhD is going to be. But I think that almost everybody in present times who's doing a PhD has a clear understanding of what is going on, even before they finish their PhD, by the way. So the question I often ask is, why is it so easy to find a PhD position? Almost anyone actually who has done a master's or bachelor's, depending on the country you're applying in and how long your bachelor's was, you are eligible for a PhD. And if you want to do a PhD, you will find a PhD position. Okay, you may not find the university you wanted to go to or the lab you wanted to work in, but there is no question whether you will find a PhD or not, because you will. So where is really the disconnect then? That, as I said, it's easy to find a PhD position, but when it comes to finding a job, it's almost impossible. So I think before we try to understand why that is the case, why that disconnect exists, I think it is important to understand why PhD positions exist, why PhD positions are created, right? Logic would say that, okay, you need to train the next generation of scientists. There is need of innovation. There is need to cure deadly diseases like cancer, neurodegenerative diseases, infectious diseases, and whatnot. So you need next generation of scientists. You need highly skilled, highly trained scientists who can carry out research to tackle these health challenges that a lot of people face or will face at some point in their lives. So that makes sense. One could also argue that, okay, there are a set of educators in universities or researchers in universities, and at some point they will retire, and once they retire, they have to be replaced, because you need to continue educating then the next generation of scientists and innovators and doctors and whatnot, right? So that also makes sense, right? That you need to educate future scientists, future researchers, future physicians, future engineers. We are producing all these PhDs because there is demand and there is a need to replace, the ones that are retiring, and are no more in this system. And then why are people finding it almost impossible, life sciences, with the life sciences PhD degree, to find a job? And I'm not just talking about academia. Even in industry, it is extremely difficult for people to find jobs. I can of course give my own example. When I finished my PhD, which was end of 2012. I tried very hard actually to find a job in industry. I was in Austria at the time, as I did my PhD in Vienna, and I tried extremely hard, and my PhD was pretty decent actually. It was not like something like extraordinary, that my product in terms of what I published, but it was a decent productivity I had. I won a few prizes in Austria during my PhD, and it was not possible for me to find a job. That was one of the reasons that me and my wife, we left Austria at the time to do a postdoc. Then even finding a postdoc was not possible in Austria in the field of or in the scientific background I had during my PhD. So when I did my postdoc, then my real postdoc, let's call it, in the US, I remember after finishing my postdoc, I had talked about what happened in terms of the Columbia University and the offer I had there for an assistant professor position in my first introductory video. So I won't talk about that, but after that was over, I was trying very hard to find a job in industry. I must have made around a couple of hundred applications, and I got a few interviews, not too many, and I was actually quite fortunate to get a couple of offers at the end. But I again found it quite interesting and surprising that despite a profile which most people in scientific circles would say was pretty okay, it was extremely hard to find a job. And again, it should not be that hard, because if there is demand for what you are offering, if there is market for what you are offering, then most people who are doing a PhD in life sciences should be able to find a job. I'm not talking about a job like becoming a director, in a company right away, but at least entry level scientist position should not be impossible to find. But that's where we are right now, and that's where we have been for many years now. So there is clearly this disconnect that on one hand we are told that there is need to produce more PhDs, it's important for innovation, it's important for science, it's such a progressive thing, right? People will go to streets, to protest, if there is a small cut in budget, research funding budget, claiming that this is going to impact science, and science is going to be deeply impacted, and we have to train more PhDs, which is kind of doesn't make any sense, right? I mean, what about the PhDs you have already trained? Why don't you hire them? Why don't you give them real jobs? If there is such a need, why there is always a need to train more and more PhDs? What is the desperation there to train more and more PhDs? You have trained a lot of PhDs. Go to LinkedIn. You will see how many PhDs are looking for a position. They just want to go and work. That's all they want. They are not asking for a director position. They are not asking to become a vice president in a company. All they're asking is that, okay, give us a chance. Give us a job. But they're not finding any. So this is total bullshit when people tell you that, oh, it is so important to fund these labs, and these academic institutions and universities, give them more and more taxpayer money because they are doing such great work. They're producing the next generation of PhDs. Really? Okay. Then what happened to those PhDs? Tell us. Where are they? What are they doing? Don't tell us the one success story or two success stories you have had. If you produce 10 PhDs in last 5 years or last few years, show us what are they doing. But that is not. Why we are not told? I mean, universities and the labs should clearly show on their website, okay, these people did their PhD here. What are they doing now? Are they just doing another postdoc and maybe another postdoc after that? Or maybe they became what we call research assistant professor, which is nothing but an old postdoc. That's not a job. That's the same thing they are doing. So somebody needs to call that out, When these people go on the streets and they go to LinkedIn and they start complaining, oh, Trump, he cut our research funding. Okay, yeah. What are your former PhD students or former PhDs, what are they doing now? How did you help them build their scientific careers? Show us. Don't give us one success story. Actually, most of the people who are doing PhDs should be success stories. That's what I would call a system that is functioning, that is working as it was intended to work. But is that happening? I don't think so. I don't think so. Don't tell us we need more PhDs. Really, don't tell us. Don't tell us we need more PhDs. We have too many. We have too many, and we know that. We know that. Go to LinkedIn. As I said, just look for the PhDs who are looking for positions. You will find, I don't know how many, hundreds, thousands. So why are these PhD positions created, right? Why are you creating all these PhD positions? Universities, institutions, research organizations, non-profits, they all tell the taxpayer or the general public that, oh, we need to find treatments, we need to find cure. That's why we need to spend more money on research. This also resonates well with politicians, because when they go asking for votes, they can run this as one of their manifesto items, that yeah, we want to fight cancer, we want to cure cancer. It's just just sounds good, right? So most general public is ignorant in many cases, when it comes to and they are kind of kept ignorant, in terms of how this taxpayer funded research, what is it really producing? I mean, I'm not saying that there is not there are not significant discoveries that are made by this research or research carried out at academic research institutions. There's amazing work being done there. But again, we are talking about the system in its entirety. We are not talking about a few labs. Out of 100 labs, if there are 3 or 4 which are doing really genuinely great science, yes, fantastic. I would say even increase their funding. But what are the other labs doing? What are they doing, really? They're just bullshitting, to be honest with you. They are just trying to stay relevant. They are just trying to keep their jobs. They know they have to publish. They know they have to publish because they need to apply for research grants. And for research grants, they need to show that they have already been productive. So what has their work translated into? That should be the assessment, not looking at the number of papers you have published or what the impact factor was. Is that really relevant? A lot of this research cannot be reproduced anyways. So researchers, university professors, or what we call PIs, principal investigators at these universities, university administrators, they have all vested interest in bringing in more money, because if they bring in more research grants, it shows that university is doing well. That is one of the metrics for assessing the quality of universities, so-called research universities, right? And in order to do so, the universities have to demonstrate that their researchers, their professors, their principal investigators are publishing well. They have patents, they're publishing well, and if they publish well, then they can write strong grant applications and they can bring in more money. So it is working well for the researchers, because a little correction there, not just any researcher, but the researchers who have permanent positions like university professors, assistant professors, associate professors, principal investigators. So the people who are in the system, right, it is working well for them. And there are also financial incentives, which are kind of tied to this. I mean, we cannot ignore that aspect also, right? We have to have an open discussion as to what incentives are driving this push for more and more grants, right? and more papers and more productivity, which is assessed by the number of papers you publish and the impact factor of those papers. So when a PI wins a grant, now they are able to run additional research or new research in their lab, or continue their existing line of research. Also, universities have overheads. I'm especially talking about the system in the US. A lot of most universities have overheads. So if you win, let's say $100 in research grant, then depending on the institution, they may get from anywhere between, I don't know, 50 to 90%, 95% sometimes of that money on top of that, right? So you got 100, university will get 60 or 75 or 80, depending on the institution, as I said. So there's a lot of incentive there, financial incentive for the universities also. Of course, one could argue that this is needed for carrying out the core facilities and all that stuff, but still we have to talk about it, right? And is that really the case? Is all that money really going into that, or is it also shaping the compensation levels of the university administrators or these so-called non-profit research institutions? One should ask those questions, because at the end of the day, this is taxpayer money. This is taxpayer money. This is not private money. This is not industry sponsored research. So when the institutions get this money, they of course want to further incentivize their investigators or professors who brought in this money. So they're able to increase their compensation accordingly. So there are financial incentives. I'm not saying in any way that this is the case and this is what's motivating every researcher. There are genuine researchers who are really driven by science. They're driven by their passion for finding the truth, for deeper understanding of human biology. But I would say these are still the fewer ones. The majority is just kind of in the system, where they know how to stay afloat in the system, what they need to do to stay relevant, what they need to do to keep their jobs. Unfortunately, that's how the system is set up. So nevertheless, it is not so difficult for universities and research institutions to make a case for more money for doing research by making an argument of unmet medical need, right? If you go to somebody, a person who doesn't even have a good understanding of science or of disease biology or of existing landscape of treatments, for example, that are available for cancer, and you tell them, hey, we need some money, we need to support cancer research so that we can find better treatments for cancer. I don't think most people will say no to that, right? Most people will say, yeah, of course, we should support that, right? This is a noble cause, and we agree we should be contributing towards that. So that argument has been used or abused. I would say it's rather been abused to extract money from the taxpayers. In some cases, it is used well, but in many cases, no, that's not the case. Most of the research that is getting published, a lot of that research cannot even be reproduced, has not led to any medical advancement. There has not been any translational impact of that. Just research papers, piling up, not leading to anything meaningful that has real impact for patients. So once these universities and these labs get these grants, they have to use it, right? In the grants, the way it works is that you have the ability to hire personnel, but you have to pre-specify that, and usually there is not that much money, which is, or percentage wise, not that much money that is allocated for that. So most PIs and professors would try to hire PhDs and postdocs, mostly PhDs, because PhDs tend to be the cheapest. They tend to be motivated, they tend to be driven, motivated. They do not question that much, they are compliant in most cases for extended periods. Eventually they realize, okay, there's something wrong, but most of them are quite compliant. And yeah, so PhD seems like the best option for most researchers in terms of hiring skilled labor to perform all the research they have proposed in their research grants. Now, this is interesting because if same researchers, same PIs were to hire somebody where they did not promise a PhD degree, so basically hiring a research technician or a research associate, the level of motivation would be different because they would know that at the end of whatever contract they have for 3 years, 4 years, whatever is mentioned in the project, because this money is not forever, these are not permanent positions. They don't want to give permanent positions, right? They want to keep it contract to contract and short-term contracts. So people stay dependent and they stay reliant, they stay insecure about their jobs, they work hard, they think that the only way to survive here is to just work hard and be productive, not question anything. So that's the nature of the whole system. That's how the whole kind of research personnel hiring system is set up to keep these positions temporary. Salaries are usually quite low for PhDs, as we know. So if you were to tell somebody with a master's degree that, hey, come and work your tail off or work your butt off for 3 years without vacation, without weekends, without much of any personal life, I think most people will say, no, it doesn't make any sense. Why should I work for this kind of money and it's not even in a stable position? Why would I do that? Now, of course, the system realized this. The system that wants to hire these people to carry out this research. They realized this, right? They knew that this is not going to work. Maybe they tried it in the beginning, but yeah, just come and work. There is no PhD position here. They realized this is not working, and then came the idea of tagging to the same thing, basically same position, a PhD degree. Now all of a sudden it becomes way more enticing, way more interesting, because now most people feel that okay, I can become a doctor, I can get a doctor title, PhD, not bad. I get a salary which is not great. I have to work hard, which is okay, because what else should I do? You have done a master's, you cannot find a job after a master's. I mean, if you cannot find a job after PhD, then let alone finding a job after master's, right? In most places, most countries. I mean, you can probably find a job, but it's again, not what you would expect in terms of the compensation and growth trajectory and whatnot. So all of a sudden, this role, which didn't seem interesting, now appears to be interesting. Now starts to catch the attention of a lot of people. So I believe that this is how the idea of these PhD positions came up, because they are short term. There is no commitment from the employer. They can let you go at any time if they don't like the way you're working. There is no obligation to keep you. If they sense that, okay, they can hire somebody else who will be working harder than you are, then yeah, because it's not a 40-hour job, right? It's not that you spend 8 hours a day and everybody's happy. No, that's not going to happen. You will be working around the clock, essentially. Maybe you'll get some time to have a bite and maybe get a nap so that you don't collapse. But the expectations are very high, and the expectations high because the supply is high. There are too many masters also, not only PhDs. There are too many master's students with life sciences degrees who would be willing to replace you for a PhD positions, because there is nothing else. So the market is saturated. Essentially, that's what I'm trying to say. And the market is saturated because there is overproduction of not only PhDs, but even the precursors to PhDs, which are your bachelor's and master's degrees. So the origin of PhD is basically need of skilled, motivated, compliant, hardworking, skilled, probably I said that already, labor. And yeah, that's what it is.